Retro Hangover, supported via Patreon by listeners like you. We would especially like to thank patrons Lyle McCarnes, Randall Quiggle, Tony G, Studstill Smash the Milkman, Tom the Superhero, Raging Demon, Mass Keaton, Lucas from Game Over Hell, Ozzy Garcia, JC, Megan Caruso, Lunchbox, aka the Disgruntled Gamer, Rick Firestone, Dave Jackson, Jenny E, Retro Overdrive, Soha, the Emperor, Storm Beagle, Matt, aka Stormageddon, B. Ross and Van Fernal from Super Garbage Day, Keith Gasper, the Retro Vixen, Eric Guess, Nomad from the Retro Wildlands podcast, Ash Events, Alan Bingham, Mike the Ref from Backbreaker Gaming, Ryan, Player One, Low 5 Alex, Alt, Renner Dreaming, Omi, and Makeshift Money. Your continued engagement and generous donations are deeply appreciated. Welcome to The Flights, a consumable curation of champions and catastrophes that is considerate of your chronometer. It is myself, Chris Colpleen, as always. And, as always, I am joined by your host, Shane Snubby Dick Dragon Celltear. What's going on there, Shane?
A snub-nosed dick dragon, small enough to fit in a purse.
I mean, that would be an upgrade, if you think about it.
Wow.
What?
What? I don't know who we're talking about. Anyway, Snubs, this is I feel like this is gonna be like a habanero. It's gonna be spicy.
It could be spicy. I don't think mine are too spicy. I think everyone's already seen the topic, which is the top 5 King of Games snubs. And by the way, the King of Games 1999 is out. And we're going to be listing our top 5. And this was recommended by COG panelist Keith Gasper, who, when recommending the topic, looking this up in Patreon, recommended what the suggestion exactly was: top 5 COG snubs, and why is number 1 Final Fantasy IX. Final Fantasy IX wasn't snubbed. It lost fair and square. That's not a snub.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a good place for us to mention that, as far as we're concerned, a snub in this context is it did not even make it to the tournament. That's what we're correct. That's what we're covering here.
Yes.
We could do a top 5 upsets. That'd be a good one.
Recommend it, people. If it hasn't already been recommended. There's like 500 topics. I don't know. Also, sorry, we didn't have a vote. We just thought it'd be fun to pick the topics. Maybe the coughing's appropriate there, Shane. Oh, it just sucks for you to edit that out. But
yay.
The next two flights will be topics that we picked. We just thought we would do this for fun.
Yeah.
Even, if you're upset about that, patrons, well, you'll have a poll soon. We all know how much you like polls.
Yeah, we know you miss the poll.
Yes. Also, before I get into my list, I'm just going to say I didn't pick any from COG 99, and I didn't pick any from COG 98.
Shit.
One, because COG 99 isn't completely out yet, and I'm doing an honorable mentions episode soon. You can do whatever you want to, Shane. You can pick them.
Okay, that's good, because I definitely did. I didn't even think about the fact that it's currently ongoing. That's fine. It's fine. We're all fine here.
Yeah, I mean, the list is out. The patrons know the list. So you can list
that's true.
I'm just staying away from them. And I'm also staying away from 98 because I wasn't a part of 98. And it was a different format and everything like that. So staying away from that. Should we get into this list here, Shane?
I think that we should. So, Chris, since you are the COG master, why don't you kick us off with your number 5?
Number 5.
All right, my number 5 is probably debatable. I didn't know there was as much hate for this game or has lowered opinions over the years after we made our list. I started seeing retrospectives and I got very confused because I remember people really liking this game. I remember this game being a big deal, and I remember being perplexed that the game didn't make it to the list, as all of these games, honestly. Well, except for the number 1. But my number 5 to start things off is Resident Evil Code Veronica in King of Games 2000. I was perplexed because I thought we had a lot of Resident Evil fans with us in RFG, as we did in King of Games 96, with Resident Evil getting all the way to the second place finish there. But apparently Code Veronica just wasn't strong enough in people's memories and didn't leave as much of an imprint as I thought it did. I do think it's, at least at the time, I thought it was better than Resident Evil 3. I think I still would. I'd have to go back and play Code Veronica. Those rose-tinted glasses can be a motherfucker. But I just, like, Resident Evil 3 made it in COG 99, and we couldn't get Code Veronica in there for 2000. Now, we also did 16 games in 2000. This was right at like 17, 18, 19, so it would have made it in the current format, probably. But who knows how people would have voted, because I still don't know how that works, which is probably going to be a topic of conversation. But yeah, Resident Evil Code Veronica, big game of the Resident Evil franchise. First game to debut as a new game, I believe, outside of a PlayStation console. And I think also the first game to use fully 3D environments. So it was a big deal. Technically now a spin-off. It's super weird. I remember loving it. I remember the VMU having the health meter for the first time, which, is also great. So I don't know. I'm just rambling at this point. Resident Evil Code Veronica is my number 5.
It's a good pick. It's a good pick. My number 5 is one that I don't necessarily have a personal attachment to, but in a weird, like, 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon way that I do. It's less than 7 for the record, but Medal of Honor in COG 99. I am still surprised that this did not make it onto the list. I mean, it is a series that was started by Steven fucking Spielberg, first of all. And the whole thing was meant to be essentially Saving Private Ryan in video game form. So from the get, it was always intended to be a very immersive cinematic experience. I find it odd, to be fair, that this started as a PlayStation game, given that it's a FPS. But it's okay, because they rectified that later with the game that I actually personally care about, which is Medal of Honor Allied Assault. But yeah, man, I was really surprised that this didn't make it, with how personally how important I think it was. And even though, unfortunately, the Medal of Honor series has kind of faded away at this point, unjustly, I might add, but taken over by the COD and the Battlefield behemoths. But I think there's really something to be said for that, dedication that they had to not only the realism of the World War II combat, and really Medal of Honor is kind of what kicked off that World War II shooter craze in like the early to mid aughts. So yeah, I think it should have been there. I think it had a lot going for it. So there you go.
It's okay, Shane. We had Donkey Kong 64.
Yeah, it's good choice. It's great. We make good decisions.
Number 4.
All right, next for me, my number 4 is Twisted Metal 2. I can't really describe to anyone who wasn't there at the time how big of a game Twisted Metal 2 was for the Sony PlayStation. Vehicular combat was a fad. And the thing is that some of the games were really good. And the biggest reason why that fad died is because some of those games became really bad. With Twisted Metal 3 was really bad. Twisted Metal 4 tried to get better. It was not better enough. But then you had Vigilante 8, which people liked, and then Vigilante 8 Second Offense, which people have opinions about. And then it just kind of disappeared and came back with Twisted Metal Black, and then disappeared a long time again and came back with the Twisted Metal on the PS3, and now has pretty much completely disappeared again. But Twisted Metal 2, in my opinion, is the pinnacle of vehicular combat games. It has just the right amount of violence and campiness and just dark humor that just really kind of just defined what a lot of that 90s post grunge attitude was. I'm sure you remember that. Like, not only did things have to be violent, but it had to be dark humor violence.
Oh yeah.
And that
was super edgy.
Yeah. Yeah, it is super edgy. It is, but it's not to the point where like it's eye rolly. Like, it's hard to really describe. Twisted Metal and Twisted Metal 2 did it brilliantly. And maybe I would go back today and I would kind of wince and cringe. Who knows? But I think that the controls were really good, despite the fact that I don't think it had analog control at the time. The special moves that you could execute that didn't require any ammo. The variety of stages, being able to blow up the Hollywood sign and being able to blow up the Eiffel Tower. Stuff like that were in the game. Like, Twisted Metal 2 was just a hoot. And it also being one of the biggest PlayStation games of the year, it still blows my mind that a lot of people looked at it and decided to pass it up. I don't know what we put in there in favor of, but not Saturn games, that's for damn sure. Oddly enough, I didn't include any Saturn games on this list for various reasons. I love the Saturn. The ones that I would want on there, I haven't played, so I can't speak to them well enough, I don't think. Even though, like, I've heard the quality is really good. And that's also probably why they didn't make it. But Twisted Metal certainly deserved to be on that list, no doubt. So yeah, my number 4 is Twisted Metal 2. King of Games, 1996.
Alrighty. Well, my number 4 is a very personal pick, and it's probably not like a popular one, because I will be the first to admit this game is janky as shit, but I still love it. And that is Rune from the year 2000. Man, Rune.
I've never heard of this game.
Yeah, that tracks. Yeah. I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong about this. I did not do my research on this part, but I believe it was PC only. I'm not sure if it ever made it to consoles. It might have, but Rune is a year 2000 third-person adventure action game where you are a Viking that basically gets caught up in a storm at sea and dies, and you kind of like fight your way through their sort of like representation of like, you know, like Niflheim and like the underworld and things like that. And it's real good. It's real good. It is super jank. It is very like again, this is a semi-obscure reference, so this may not help contextualize whatsoever, but in ways it feels like Gothic, in that it's like Euro jank, you know, but like also I'm pretty sure that it was an American developed game. But anyway, it was Human Head Studios at any rate, but it was just a lot of fun. The combat was really visceral. The environments were super interesting, very creative. The combat was intense, like bloody. Like you could throw axes and decapitate people. You could sever limbs. It actually had a pretty neat multiplayer arena mode that I remember playing at a LAN party with a few friends. A LAN party, by the way, that we had at a LAN like place. If that, you know, puts things into perspective about the year 2000. We drove to a place with a bunch of gaming PC towers and played games together on a LAN. It was good times. There was a lot of soda involved. Now.
Shane, one of them put it in a wood box.
No.
No? Oh, wow. That's like the first. Anyway, sorry.
We also did not have anybody duct taped to a rafter. It's not quite that crazy, but anyway, yeah. So and that deathmatch one was actually a lot of fun too, because it is literally, it was just like a gladiatorial arena where you just had a bunch of Vikings just running around picking up big ass battle axes and swords and trying to chop each other's heads off and hawking them across the map. And it was good times. Like I said, it was super janky, but it was a lot of fun. And I remember playing through the story at least a couple of times, because it's not a super long game either, but it's a very personal pick. So in some ways I'm not surprised that it didn't make it onto the list, but I'm still personally offended by it. So there you go.
Yeah.
And that's what matters.
That's a typical COG voter right there.
Yep. I'm taking everything personally.
Number 3.
All right. My number 3 is from the King of Games 1992. And maybe it could be in 1993. So I'll pretend that it wasn't on the list and just sneak it in if we ever do 93. And say Thunder Force 4, which is probably the best shooter of the 16-bit generation, perhaps. One of the, or shmup, if you will. Maybe one of the best of all time. You know, that genre that was big at the time was one of the biggest genres for like a long time in gaming. And just no one wants to vote for shooters, apparently. Like, they're just like toxic. If Thunder Force 4 didn't make it into a King of Games tournament, then there's never going to be a shooter that makes it into a King of Games tournament ever. Why would there? Unless you're like going to go into the early 80s when there was nothing but shooters and Donkey Kong. It's not. Did no one play shooters? Did no one our age play shooters? Did that just bypass us? Do we just like to pretend they never existed?
I was bad at them.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, everyone's bad at them. That's kind of the secret. No one's good at them until you spend like 40 hours playing them. But it's just, how? I don't know. I guess the other thing is on the Sega Genesis, and there seems to be a very pro Nintendo bias when it comes to some things. I'm just, again, it's a perplexing thing that Thunder Force 4 did not make it, because it is such a high quality game. It is held in such esteem within its genre, and it's held up as a prime example of kind of the height of the Sega Genesis visually and from an audio standpoint. So for it not to make it just pretty much tells me a shooter will never be in a King of Games tournament. It just is not in the taste of any panelists that I could that I could group together and vote on video games. That's what that tells me. Never shooters. So King of Games will never. Don't worry, shooter haters. Don't worry, shmup haters. You'll never see one win a King of Games tournament, because they won't even get in. So Thunder Force 4 is my number 3.
Okay. Number 3. I feel like it's somewhat similar. Okay, it's not really similar at all, but there's spaceship things involved. So that's what I'm going to go with. But my pick is Episode 1 Racer from 1999. What the fuck? This is a gem. This game is a fucking gem, and I am so salty that it was not included. What do you mean, what?
That Zirconia is a gem.
Yeah. Sure. Anyway, so Star Wars Episode 1 Racer is a surprisingly good racing game on the N64 that probably doesn't have a right to be as good as it is, but it is. It's probably one of the better things that came out of Star Wars Episode 1, if I'm being entirely honest. And I am appalled that it did not even make it into like the bottom tier. Like, it wasn't even a prelim game. This is just a hard snub. And you people are the reason that Anakin became Darth Vader.
It's okay, Shane. We still got to talk about Donkey Kong 64.
God damn it.
Number 2.
My number 2 is a incorrect decision made by me and a couple other people, I'm sure. But it was a game that I said at the time did not deserve to be part of the list. And the further away I get from it, the more I realize that was the wrong opinion. And this was in the King of Games 2000, and that game is Shenmue. Yeah, it deserved to be there. It may not have aged very well. Sour milk might be preferable in many situations. I stand by my analysis that Majora's Mask did the whole entire time thing better, and in many ways the city exploring better. Maybe also the combat better. But I will say that the way that it handled the open world, Shenmue at the time, was unparalleled. It really did lay the foundation and the bedrock for what would eventually, well, not what would eventually be, but in terms of the video game industry, evolving towards a game like Grand Theft Auto 3. And because of that, I do think that Shenmue is a very important game. It was visually stunning. A lot of important elements came out of there. It still kind of exists in the Yakuza series, which people love. So Shenmue, I don't think it would have won. I think it probably would have gone far, given an honest analysis, if we had just given it a chance. But my mentality back then was Shenmue sucks. Let's not put it in there. And I don't think, I know that was the wrong take. So Shenmue, I am sorry. I should have voted for you, and maybe you would have made it in. So that's my number 2, Shenmue from COG 2000.
I mean, there were forklifts and sailors. What more could you want?
Getting forklift certified, I heard, is legendary. I already said, I was wrong.
Yeah. Well, speaking of being wrong for the year 2000, I got another one for you. My number 2 is Alice. Fucking people don't have any good, taste in art. That's what I've decided. Is this game a janky 3D platformer from the year 2000? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Very jank.
Is it also a fucking amazing piece of art and a really awesome take on a classic story? Also, yes. I can't. There's no way for me to properly do it justice. I don't think. And it's one of those things where, unfortunately, I do think you had to be there at the time, because these sorts of things are, or can be, a little rough to go back to. For what it's worth, when we talked about this game, I didn't have too much trouble going back to it. With very little effort, you can actually bring it up to speed as far as modern PCs are concerned. But at any rate, actually, I don't think you have to do much, because on Steam, they already did it for you. But anyway, point being, yeah, it definitely has its faults. It's not perfect, but I think a lot of the art direction and the sort of ingenuity that went into the game, the creative spark that is very evident just throughout, for me, overshadows a lot of some of the the fiddly bits in the mechanics and things like that. If we ever talk about games as art, I think that this is a pretty good example. And it's like I said, we're just we're surrounded by a bunch of heathen troglodytes that don't know what good art is, and that's okay, because we still love them, but they're wrong.
I'll let you have your opinion on that one, Shane. I appreciate your passion.
Thank you.
Number 1.
All right, my number 1. A lot of the panelists may not even know that. I've had a lot of the people I mentioned it to may not even remember I said it. Or I think I may have brought it up in the COG chat. I don't think anyone remembers. And this is from the King of Games 1992. So one of the things about 1992, if you go back to the early 90s and before, finding release dates for North American games when they came out in North America is difficult, especially NES games, early Super Nintendo games, Sega Genesis games around that time. It's hard to find an exact release date, even sometimes a year, because they just weren't well documented in the United States. It was just kind of like, it's coming out in March, or some retailers get it like 2 months before street date, and all this jazz. This wasn't really one of those cases. It was just a complete lack of oversight. And that game is Dragon Quest III. And I can understand why I did not put it on the list for rankings or voting or anything, because we already had Dragon Quest V. And when I saw Dragon Quest V on the list for the Super Famicom, I thought that why would another Dragon Quest game be on this list? Without me realizing that in 1992 in North America, Enix released both Dragon Quest III and Dragon Quest IV in the same year. Dragon Quest III in Japan was released in 1988, by the way, which is probably why I overlooked it. Another fun one is Mega Man 4 and Mega Man 5 were released in the same year, and Mega Man 4 was not included to be picked and ranked. I think we got the right one there. I love Mega Man 4, though. I like Mega Man 4 better. But I think time has shown that 5 is the objectively better one. But Dragon Quest 3, the reason why it's my number 1, aside from me just completely screwing up the list and not giving people the option to vote for it, is many people consider it to be the best Dragon Quest game. And it's usually up there in Japan with Dragon Quest V. Now, everything can change, new generations. There's been more Dragon Quest games, obviously, since then, and the Japanese love their Dragon Quest. But Dragon Quest III was the one that really exploded the series into the mainstream for Japanese role-playing fans. It was the one that just solidified it as an eternal juggernaut. This was the game that created the rumor that Dragon Quest games had to be released on a holiday to keep kids from skipping from school, or a Dragon Quest game was like a release what became a holiday. And that, by the way, that's all rumor. From what I understand, that is not true, but it could be believed. That's how popular this release was. So you really look at how a lot of our panelists love to lean into the legacy category and talk about how important legacy is, which really helped carry Dragon Quest V all the way to the finals. You could make the argument that Dragon Quest III could have likely beaten Dragon Quest V in a lot of those categories for many people. Definitely one of the biggest oversights on my part. Probably the game that would have had a lot of people confused due to its popularity, much like Dragon Quest V had a lot of people somewhat confused. And it was a game that came out in North America, so people had some familiarity with it. So for it not to be in a King of Games tournament with as big as that series is, that is the reason it is my number 1 for a COG snub. And it really is all my fault as the COG master. So sorry, Dragon Quest 3. Sorry, listeners. Dragon Quest 3 will never be on a COG.
All right. Here we are. The number 1. And this is one of those ones where I have to question the choices we've made when it comes to the people we surround ourselves with.
Oh.
In the year of our Lord 1992, Terminator 2 Judgment Day for the arcade came out, and in my opinion is still one of the best shooter games in the arcades, full stop, period. It was and is a fantastic arcade game. The guns that were included in the cabinet, or on the cabinet, I should say, are fucking huge. They are chunky. They've got heft. They got red ass buttons on the side that you can press to shoot missiles and grenades and shit. They have haptic feedback so that when you're pulling that trigger and shooting that machine gun, it is rocking and rolling and bopping with you. And it's just such a good arcade game. And it was, at least in my experience, this could be purely anecdotal, I don't know, but it was fairly ubiquitous. I saw it in a lot of places. It was at the bowling alley that I would, frequent in my hometown. It was at the arcade. I think it even was at one of the pizza joints at one point, but it was just, and of course I'm biased because I'm a pretty big fan of the first two Terminator films, but man, to not even include it, like to not even have it mentioned, it may have been an honorable mention, I don't remember at this point, but to not even, but to not even have it like enter the tournament to just be, I mean, I'd still be salty that it got knocked out in the first round, let's be real, but for it to not even be there, man, what a letdown. Like T2 Arcade is just such a fantastic, like, I guess you call it a light gun shooter for all intents and purposes. I guess that's kind of really what it is, but man, this one bummed me out the most, which of course is why it's my number one. But between my love of the Terminator series, or at least what it was, maybe not so much in the past like 20 years, but at least its beginnings were real solid. And the fact that it's just a really great arcade game, you can't not have fun with T2 Arcade. I challenge anyone to not have fun with T2 Arcade. Okay. So anyway, that's my number one. Huge miss. I don't know what people were thinking.
They probably thought of the Super Nintendo one.
Probably, yeah, because that thing's dog shit.
It's shit.
It's so bad.
So I know this was released in 1994, but Revolution X or T2?
Oh, still T2.
Really?
Yeah. But again, like I said, I'm biased, but there's also something about like, I think the other thing is that T2 Arcade plays everything real straight. Like it's very serious. It's like, yo, like you are in the fucking robot apocalypse, like buckle up. And Revolution X is just fucking cheesy as hell, which I guess is like kind of on brand, but I don't know, man. There's something about it.
Yeah, no, I love it because it's so stupid.
It is very
such
stupid.
A dumb game. So
Shoot
dumb.
the men with the CDs.
Yeah, use the power of music.
That's right.
With flying discs. That's not music. That's a decapitation device.
Should just use laser discs. You would have had more coverage.
Yeah. Also, I have to say, honorable mention. The king of games talking to the region free gamers is fairly obvious. When they came up with the name of it, it was based off the King of Fighters, and we have yet to have a King of Fighters game and a King of Games tournament. Which, yeah, it's kind of shitty. I don't know which year you'd put it in, because the best King of Fighters game, in my opinion, is 98, and that they didn't even put it in that one, so we weren't part of that. Not saying it should have been. 98's a ballin' year.
Well, there you go. So we hope you enjoyed that. I mean, if you've been along for the ride, then you've probably listened to all of these King of Games tournaments, and perhaps you agree with us. Perhaps you have some other ones. I mean, in reviewing for this episode, I went back and looked at the lists of games that we had put down as like potential options for all of these years, and there were a lot that were left off. Now, to be fair, a lot of them are trash and were left off rightly, but there were some where I could see people making a pretty good case for why they think it should have been on the tournament bracket and did not. So if you are one of those people, let us know, jump into the Discord, talk to us in the episode discussion channel. That's the place to do it. And share your thoughts. I mean, I would say you could do it on like social media and stuff, but fucking I'm pretty sure we'll never see it because we just don't check that shit that often. So
Yeah.
Speaking of which, do we have an official Blue Sky? Do we have one?
Yes.
Do we use it?
Yes.
All right. Well, that's cool. That's news to me. I don't know. Maybe
I
there.
told you that a long time ago.
Yeah,
What are
fucking.
you talking about?
It's news in that I forgot, Chris.
Okay.
I myself just signed up for Blue Sky for the first time like 2 days ago, so I don't, whatever.
It's
Yeah, it's fine.
I guess.
It's whatever. I don't know. I was hoping maybe it was an Instagram replacement for me, and I'm not sure that it is yet. But anyway, that is a different topic. But anyway, we hope you enjoyed these lists. And if for some reason this happens to be the first time you've joined us, which would be interesting considering this is like sort of a very kind of niche topic list, all things considered. But we hope you had a good time, and feel free to check out the rest of the backlog. We have a ton, and it's all available at the Linktree. We make that easy for you. So head on over to Linktree/Retro Hangover and click or tap on the button of your choosing. That may lead you to the Patreon. It may lead you to our merch store, or perhaps our YouTube or our Twitch. It could be any of those things. All good things, I mean,
Of course.
The Twitch and YouTube may be debatable, I don't know. Or we certainly stream, but the quality is pretty hit or miss, So sometimes where we really nail it, and then sometimes we're just there. But if you just want to hang out, we got that covered. We like hanging out. We usually have pretty good discussions too. So so Chris, what if the people want to come and check it out, what should they do?
Just head on over to YouTube or Twitch, preferably Twitch, because then you can read all the DMs and all the good stuff. But yeah, head on over there at 9 p.m. Eastern time on your Sundays, and you might see Shane try to lick his own nipple.
Hell yeah. I didn't know I was signed up for this, but all right, there you go.
I mean, they won't know unless they show up, right? I said
that's true.
I never said you would. There's no promises here.
Stranger things have happened.
If you throw money at us, Shane will definitely lick his nipple.
Well, all right. On that note, until next flight.
Play with your It's So Snubby joysticks.